Good. And we are recording and we're up and into our Wednesday session, guys. So welcome back to the Job Ready series. And today I'm really excited to share that we've got the brand Experian and someone who we know really well at Pathway, Oriane. She's really great. She'll be really probably informal, really approachable and really insightful in what she's got to share with us today. And we're looking at the video interview masterclass. Now, something I actually learned and was thinking about this. I'm a small business, right? I've got, haven't got hundreds in my team. I would use a different type of interview assessment now that we're all online and virtual to the likes of Experian, who are a bigger company than I am, who have more people applying for more roles. It's really interesting. You'll learn today about the pre-recorded video interview and really going into detail about that, something that I think is so important because I hear loads of youngsters who get the challenge of a pre-recorded video interview, and they sometimes just choose not to go for it and not to do it because it's just something they haven't done before. So basically, we're going to look at that, ask some key questions of Oriane today, and make sure that we are learning as much as we can. And then when it comes to us and we're ready to do one, we absolutely nail it. So in terms of today, guys, and we've got asked this a few times already, chat box is already firing, so well done. Chat box, just pop in any comments that you want there. But if you want to ask a question, guys, pop it in the Q&A box. So find the Q&A box. Legend Tom, you've already started with festivals and concerts. So that sort of comment would be great for the chat box. And then if you want to have a question answered, pop it in the Q&A box because I'm going to be looking at that. And guys, anytime you think of a question, pop it in and I'll ask it either straight away or when we get to the Q&A at the end. If you do want to raise your hand and speak, pop in the chat box that you want to speak and you raise your hand and I'll let you speak. That's how it works. Guys, that's a silly caricature of me. But the key thing about the Job Ready scheme, supported by the Careers and Enterprise Company, supported by great companies like Experian, is that we will be following up and supporting those students who really want to get into work this summer. That's what it's designed to do. But I do know there's also people on this session who are, just proactive and looking into, meeting companies like the Co-op, meeting companies like Experian, meeting companies like Severn Trent, National Grid. I think it's great that you're all using the scheme to develop your skills in such a difficult, challenging time, I suppose, for all of us. Guys, I've launched the polls, so do find the poll somewhere on your screen. And whilst I'm just getting that set, it's just nice to hand over to Oriane just to say hello.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and welcome everyone. I appreciate you joining on a later evening, but thankfully it's lovely and sunny. So my name's Oriane Whiteman. You can call me Oreo, like the cookie biscuit. That tends to be easier. And I'm one of the senior talent acquisition partners here at Experian. So what that means in basic terms is if you apply to us as an apprentice, a student, a graduate, you can guarantee that we will cross paths and I'll be going through that recruitment process with you. So I'm here today to share lots of really good insight, give you a genuine perspective behind the scenes. And as Chris said right at the beginning, totally informal. You can ask me absolutely anything. I'm here for you. That's the reason I've, I suppose, given up this evening today. So I'm excited.
Legend. Thanks so much, Oriane. We love sessions with you. So let's have a look at the poll results, guys. So here we go. Which of the following applies to you? So we've had some people who've already left school or college. Great for you guys to be able to join us. Well done. Year 13s as well, 23%. Year 12s, proactive year 12s, 41%. You guys are smashing it, looking ahead to next year. That's awesome. Year 11s as well. I wonder if you'll go to sixth form or not. Do pop in the chat box, 13%. And we've got our teachers and advisors and other, which is always mysterious, and well done for being on the session today. For those of you who have gone back to school or college, being back is better, Oriane. 85% saying they prefer it. I guess they just got sick of online learning, but 3% say they preferred online learning. So there we go. Have you been to one of our sessions before? I'm loving the fact that 26% of you have been on this series regularly. That's great. 8% have been on one before, and 67%, guys, this is your first time. So thank you for joining us. We're doing this basically every Wednesday, 5 till 6. So keep it coming. And what are you hoping to get out of the session? Here we go. So the main one really is a better understanding on what the video interview process is. Then closely followed by knowing how to stand out. And then some experience in networking with employers and hearing about experience opportunities. So, good interest across the board there, but a better understanding about the video interview process is the key one. And who's winning in terms of representation? The Southeast wins it again. 36%. Normally the Northeast comes second, but no, we've got London there. The Midlands, 21%. So well done, maybe coming to meet Experian, who of course are based in Nottingham, which I'm sure we'll find out about later on. But well done for doing the poll, guys. And let me hand over to Oriane and let the questions come in whenever you think of them.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, it's great to have all of you with us. And as I say, really informal. I love that you've stated the reason you've joined is you want to learn more about video interviews. So consider this your personal masterclass. So if you want to go to the next slide, Chris. So for this session, I'm going to cover something specific known as a one-way pre-recorded video interview. Now, for some of you, you may have no clue what that means, and you may be thinking, what's the difference? What are the different styles of interviews? Don't worry, all will be revealed. So before we jump into it, I'm going to start with a quick question. So if you can go to the next slide for me, Chris. What I'd really love to know to really kickstart this day is pop in the chat box for me and let me know, what is it you think employers are looking for in students? So it could be the best grades, the part-time job, maybe it's someone that's kind. What is it you think employers are looking for? So Ishan, I love that you've kicked it off for us, experience. Amelia, learn, develop. Karina, positive attitude. Hannah, responsibility. Yes. Willingness to improve. Helen, enthusiasm. Ryan, leadership. Some really good things coming out of this already. Drive. Chris, attitude. Brilliant. Well, we'll go on to the next slide now, and I'll actually be able to give you some genuine data and statistics. Now, this was taken at graduate level, so there is a slight difference here. But in this data, a bunch of students were asked, what do they think employers are looking for? And then employers were asked, what is it you're actually looking for? Now, the reason why I want to kickstart the session with this is to really give you that confidence that what you're worried about and what you think employers want is very, very different. So you'll notice here, looking at some of the key differences, what really surprised me is they've got grades right at the top on the student side. So a 2-1 or above, that would be equivalent to a B in A levels or equivalent on a BTEC standard. Yet on the employer side, that's 6th. There's a massive difference there between what students think and what employers think. In addition to that, if you look at things like problem-solving skills, that's 7th on the student side, and yet that's 3rd for an employer. So if you just have a flick through down the employer side, communication skills, passion for the business, problem-solving, resilience, all of these skills are things that you can learn and gain experience in that you don't have to get from a part-time job or an internship. You're doing that now on this session with us. You're doing that now when you go to college and you learn. So just a gentle reminder that what you think an employer wants is very different to what they actually do. So never let that put you off from applying and taking the risk.
And I think that goes back to sometimes what we're told at school, isn't it? Like I remember always being told, oh, you're not going to be able to do that. You won't be able to do this because you're not doing this at the moment. And then we kind of get fed that sometimes, I think, whereas this is why we do those sessions like Seven Trent, National Grid, they were all talking about how they use strengths-based recruitment. So it's all about your potential. They just care about your potential, not about what you used to do, not about what you did yesterday, what about where you can go. And another thing actually, Oriane, is resilience since COVID. Resilience has actually gone to the #1 in terms of what employers want over the next 5 years. It's resilience, then emotional intelligence, and then it gets on to maybe some more technical skills. But again, you can't practice it. It's all about like getting in and having a go and bringing your best self, isn't it? Which I think is inspiring.
Absolutely. And we've all had a year of being resilient. So yeah,
we've all got evidence of that.
Great life experience. But if we move on to the next slide. So in terms of a typical recruitment process, Every organisation is different, so I cannot hand on heart tell you this is exactly what you will go through. But as an idea, if you're applying for an apprenticeship, or even if you go on to university and you choose to do a placement year, which is a 12-month scheme during your studies, or you go on to do a graduate scheme, you can kind of expect this will be the process you go through. So you'd apply online with your CV, there'll be some form of online testing, and then typically there is a video interview stage. Now that could be a telephone interview, it could be a live interview, it could be a one-way pre-recorded video interview. Even at the assessment centre, there might be a face-to-face interview. So I suppose in long-term, in short-term summary, you will experience some form of interview regardless. So it's worth knowing what those are and what you're getting involved in. Now, for this session, we are only focusing on the pre-recorded video interview. However, if you want some really great tips on a face-to-face interview, I have ran a previous session with Pathway CTM. There is a recording of this available and you can access that through the platform, as well as it will be emailed to you after this session. So you're not going to miss out on any juicy information. But for today, we're focusing on pre-recorded content. So next slide, Chris.
Oh, yeah, just really quickly, because when I'm 32 now, but when I was coming up and trying to get a job, we had to do loads of telephone interviews. And so I'd always stand up, have good body position, etc. But I guess that's a bit old school now, isn't it? And it's all being replaced by these sort of pre-recorded video interviews where you as a recruiter can see as well as hear.
Absolutely. And we'll cover that a little bit later on, why employers even use a pre-recorded interview and what the benefits are to that. So before I jump in with telling you exactly what the different styles of interview involve, from a student perspective, what do you think the difference might be between a live and a pre-recorded video interview? So pop in the chat, let me know what your thoughts are. What's the difference between live and pre-recorded in a video interview context?
In the chat box, here we go. Interaction between the interviewer and interviewee. Great start, Lewis.
Yeah.
Louise, sorry, I'm terrible with names.
I would guess that maybe Louise is a teacher with that kind of response.
Yeah.
So don't worry about getting it wrong either. It really doesn't matter, but be brave. So what do you think the difference is?
Live versus pre-recorded.
Hannah. Okay, live, you're directly speaking to the employer through the video. Pre-recorded is about yourself. Ibad, pre-recorded questions that are already made for you. Yeah. Certain time to answer. Yeah, really great. Farhan, live means they react to your questions, ask follow-ups. Yeah, really good point. Pre-recorded means the questions are set in stone. Okay, some really great themes coming through here. So if we go to the next slide, to give you a simple breakdown, you've all completely hit the nail on the head. And I love that things are still coming through as well. Charlie, yeah, live real-time communication. I love this. So you're absolutely spot on. In a live video interview, it's similar to a face-to-face interview. So it's typically delivered over some form of video conferencing platform, could be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts. And as we've mentioned, you're answering live questions. It's in real time. There's that flow of conversation that you can respond. There may be follow-up questions. Pre-recorded is typically solo, and it can be delivered through a multitude of platforms. So if you want to Google any of these, there are things such as Launchpad, HireView, and Spark Hire. They've all got articles on their own website. Not only that, you can look to see what does the platform actually look like. And as pointed out by one of the students, you typically get asked questions within a set time limit, and these are standardized. So if we go on to the next slide, Chris.
I just wonder what people are thinking, which ones they'd rather do, actually. It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, interestingly, the statistics show a pre-recorded video interview is what students are most scared of. It's what they really don't enjoy. And that's why we're running this masterclass, so that you can prepare, that you can feel comfortable, and that you can deliver the best to your ability. So a pre-recorded video interview, when you click to log on, it may look like one of these two screens. Now, for this session, I'm going to walk you through a tool called Launchpad, which is what we use at Experian. And I'm going to show you completely transparent what that entire process looks like end to end.
Amazing.
So if we can go to the next slide.
So is this what they would see on question 1, question 2? Actually, so you use this properly for your graduates, apprentices?
Exactly. Now, the only difference is I have given some mock questions. You're not going to see the exact interview questions we use.
Come on, Orianne, we need exclusives here at Pathways.
But any form of video interview, when it's pre-recorded, you'll have some form of landing page like this. Now, there may be a video at the start, and that will help you understand more about the business. They'll also explain what they use it for. There may be some key text, but that's your entry slide. That's your, I suppose, welcome page. If we go on to the next slide.
And just sorry, I'm going to be annoying here. I'm just thinking what I've been thinking as a sort of learner. So I've already come through to this stage, and now have I selected? I'm now like at home. I've hung up my coat. I'm ready to do it, and this is what I'm seeing because I've chosen to do it at this time.
Absolutely. So a pre-recorded video interview can be done on your own terms at any time. It could be 1 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It really doesn't matter. And that's one of the benefits. So it means you can fit it around school, around work, around any other commitments you have. And you only go to submit it when you are ready, as long as it's within the deadline. You'll obviously have a deadline of when you need to complete that by. So once you've gone through the loading screen, there'll typically be a kind of tech page. So making sure your microphone works, your video works, that there's no key issues. So if we can just go on to the next slide, Chris, you'll see here in our platform, it will do a video check for you. It will make sure and ask you, can you see yourself? Is your camera working? Is everything as it should be? There's normally a help button or customer service team as well. So if it doesn't work and you panic and think, oh my gosh, it's not loading, what do I do? Where am I going? You can use those functionality and buttons available. There's a reason they're there. Next slide. So once you've done your video check, you then typically have a practice question. Now, this is not a real scenario. It's literally a test to make you feel comfortable ahead of what's about to come. So, for example, this practice question, we're asking, please tell us about your previous work experience. The reality is we don't want to know, and we're not bothered. It's a practice. So when you record this practice question, what you'll be able to do is actually get used to the format. So you'll notice in the right-hand corner, there's the little red dot, and it will tell you how long you've got in that video session, and it will count the time down. So in this session, you've got a minute time, and obviously you could see I was on 52 seconds when I took this screenshot. There's also the, oh, go on, Chris.
That is stressful. So we see the clock go down, do we?
Yes, and that's the good point of the practice question, because you've got a chance to panic and go, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Give it a go. But there are tips you can do to prepare ahead of a pre-recorded session, and we will cover that later. But when you go into it, it will show you the time, it will give you a practice, but you can also blur your video. So many people hate seeing themselves on camera. It makes them more uncomfortable. So if there's an option to blur your video, don't be afraid to use it if it helps you focus. It means you're then only thinking about what you're saying versus what you look like. If your hair's a mess and we need a haircut,
What?
So
Oh yeah, but wouldn't that mean that you, as the recruiter, don't see me and see my face, so I have less chance?
absolutely not. So the blur video is a function for students who are recording. From our side, we would still see the unblurred version. But when I'm typically scoring a video interview, I'm not looking at what they're wearing, what their hairstyle is. I'm listening to the quality of what they're saying. That's what's more important to me. So it's about you feeling comfortable as best as possible in this recruitment process. And if blurring the video helps, go for it.
Fine, that's awesome. I was just going to say, Amelia just asked actually, can the employers see your response to the practice question?
No, they cannot. So no employer can see the result to a practice question. It does not get scored. It does not get saved. If it did, it would take up too much storage space, which would be completely, I suppose, a bad decision. But equally, that's the point of the practice. It's your trial. It's not for us, it's for you.
That's great. And oh yeah, and I know that you're at Experian and you guys have got great roles, but for other companies, is it exactly the same, or is it similar, or is it everything really different?
It's hard to say because every company has a slightly different approach, but of all the video tools that I've used and assessed, even tools that we haven't used but I've had demos for, they all involve a practice question.
Fine.
So you will get this scenario where you're able to try ahead of going into the main interview.
Great, thank you.
So once you've covered your practice question, you then go into your actual interview. So what will typically happen is the question will pop up. In this scenario, it says, welcome to Experian. Please tell us a bit about yourself. What do you like? What do you dislike? What are your hobbies? And it tells you the answer time. So it's very clearly stated how long you've got to record your answer. We've then got the time in the right-hand corner that tells you how far you are into that time. We still have the blur video functionality. And if you finish early, there is obviously the stop button at the bottom. So if you can go to the next slide for me, Chris. When you click stop, this is where you may have other options available. Now, some companies will allow you to re-record your answers. So if you absolutely fluff it up, if you panic and trip over your words, if it just goes down the gutter and you think, oh gosh, and you start kicking yourself over it, calm yourself down. If there's an option to re-record, great. Let that one go. You get a chance to try and try again until you're comfortable with what you want to submit. Equally, not all employers give you that option. So one of the top tips that we'll cover later on is making sure you know, is it a one take only, or can I re-record that answer? That's really important information that will help you.
And what is it at Experian?
It's re-record. So you can re-record your answer with us. And as you can see here, there is a play button where you can play back your response.
Okay.
Now,
how many times can you do it? Keep doing
as many times as you like.
Yeah.
But my personal, I suppose, tip is if you play back your video, you're going to pick faults with it naturally. And if you do that too often, you're going to stress yourself out and overcomplicate it and worry about it. So my advice would be record your answer, play it back once just to check, does it feel okay? Does it look okay? Are you 90% comfortable with it? Don't worry about the tiny bits where you feel like you stumbled over a word or your eyes looked in the wrong direction. Those are minor details that don't matter. And as I say, you can get yourself in a really tricky place where you worry far too much about the things that you probably don't need to. So if we can go on to the next slide. So in terms of before you have that pre-recorded video interview, I touched upon it just a moment ago, but the key things that I think you need to find out is, one, is it a one take only, or can you re-record your answer? Two, what's the deadline? it will normally say in your invitation, and it will be really clear. It might be in bold, it might be highlighted. The third point is, do you have the login details? Do you have access to that platform? And have you tested it? The final point is, what device can you complete it on? Can you do it on an iPad, on your laptop, on your phone? Not everyone has access to a PC or a laptop at home, and most employers recognize that. And as part of their social mobility efforts, they'll want you to still have the ability to apply and be involved. I know at Experian, the tool that we use with Launchpad, you can complete it on your mobile or on an iPad or any kind of smart device. And that for us is critical, because I don't care if someone has their phone and is doing a selfie angle like this. I care about the quality and everyone having a fair chance to an amazing career. That's what's critical with us.
Yeah, and it's really important that you said this, because we've got some students on here who are already out of education, maybe looking for jobs, and maybe had a difficult time trying to get onto the employment run in this really difficult time at the moment. But you mentioned their social mobility and everyone having a chance. That is important, of course, big employers, isn't it? It's not all about the same type of person who's been to Cambridge University. Like, that's old school now, isn't it? It's not about.
Oh gosh, absolutely. I mean, any employer that still focuses on red brick universities and this kind of high elite status, that's not the world we're living in at all.
But even those that have got like minimal qualifications, they've still got a chance, haven't they?
Absolutely. I mean, some of our best people at Experian have come from a completely alternative background that you could have never predicted. I mean, one of our graduates who is in an IT role, he actually studied an English literature degree, which you would not even correlate into that job. So don't get too hung up on what you studied or what those grades are. There are some restrictions, and obviously you need to try as best as you can whilst you're at college. But as long as you can show you've tried, that you've learned and grown and developed as a person, and you've got that resilience that we spoke about earlier, that commercial awareness, that's more important to us.
No, I like it. And by the way, people are worried about what the employers can see. So we asked whether you can see the practice, and now we're asking, can you see the first recording if, for example, you didn't use it?
No, we only see the recording that you save and submit. So we don't see, if you recorded 4 versions, we don't see all 4. We see the one that you submit to us. That's it.
And how many attempts are you allowed to take in pre-recorded videos? But I think you said it changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can honestly record as many times as you like, but as I say, don't get into that cycle of just re-recording for the sake of it. Nothing is ever perfect. You've just got to be your natural self and let things flow.
Great. So guys, hopefully this is really helping, because 69% of you wanted a better understanding of what video interviews were, the pre-recorded type. So next slide, Oriane, this is really helpful.
Yeah. So we spoke about this earlier, that we know that pre-recorded video interview is one of the most challenging and stressful parts for most applicants. It's what they are most daunted by. But let's flip it on its head and actually think, what are some of the advantages to having a pre-recorded interview? From a student perspective, what do you think the advantages of this type of video interview process would be?
I can think of loads here. Do put in the chat box, time to prepare, straight in. That's what I'll be thinking. But yet you say, Oriane, people are more worried about this one than they are about the live ones.
They are. Statistics from the Institute of Student Employers show that this is the most daunting part of the process versus a live interview. And yet in a live interview, you can't take back your words. What's said is said. So it's really interesting. Hannah, it gives you a chance to sell yourself without feeling under pressure, without eyes watching you, reacting. Very true. Amelia, you can practice, as you say, number of flakes. Karina, it's flexible. Definitely.
Do people prefer this now to the live ones, I wonder?
Well, hopefully we'll see some statistics coming out off the back of COVID, because we've had no choice but to have everything in a kind of video format, but I think more employers will be using pre-recorded video interview, and I think we'll get more data on that as time moves on.
Yeah, okay, brilliant.
Alison, oh, thank you for letting me know you've enjoyed it. And as I say, the recording will be available, so don't worry if you miss anything, you can pick up later on.
And we've got to get onto tips as well, because 62% have asked how they can stand out in a video interview. So we must get onto that as well, because surely there's some really like do's and don'ts. Like you must have seen some funny things in your time, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So if we cover the advantages, so from an employer side, the reason employers use pre-recorded video interviewing is it saves a ton of time. Not only can you record it in your own time and on your own schedule, but it means the employer can review your submission in their own time on their own schedule. And what that means is we're able to see more candidates being able to give a fairer opportunity to people. And as I've mentioned, it can be flexed around other commitments. From the student side, as we've mentioned, you can complete it on a mobile or iPad device, which is great when most interviews don't allow that if it's a virtual interview where you say need a laptop, if it's a live interview. Also, the ability to re-record and practice well in advance. So we've covered the advantages, and if we go on to the next slide, what we can now talk about is those really important tips. So how do I prepare for a pre-recorded video interview? What can I do that's going to put me at an advantage? So the first point is all around technology. Reading the instructions, making sure that you've got that login information, you've got the right URL, you've tested all of those links, you've tested your video, your camera, your microphone, and everything is working as it should. The second point, you are all going to laugh and hate me for saying this, but it comes down to practice. If you do your research, you can find tons of questions that may come up in a pre-recorded video interview. So what that means is you can prepare for some of the questions that may be coming up. Not only that, you can get your phone and you can record yourself answering those questions and play it back. It sounds cheesy, but it is the best thing you can do when it comes to practice. The last thing I would say is use notes, but do not read off a script. Don't sound robotic. I would like to work for Experian because they are a global company with 6 billion tons of data and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't sell it. What I really want to know is the truth to that question. Do not be afraid to be personable, to be friendly and welcoming. The third point is obviously making sure you look into the camera. If we're engaging with you, we want you to be as involved as possible. We don't want your eyes down here looking at notes and scripts because you can see that. Equally, pay attention to that time limit. Be very clear on how long you've got and use it well. I see too many people that answer in 10 seconds flat, and it's such a waste where they could have said so much more. On the flip side, I've seen people use the full minute, waffle on and on and on, and actually get cut off at the end because they didn't get to the point of what they were trying to say. So try to be very almost strict with yourself on what's the question and what is it I'm actually trying to say? What is it I'm trying to get across?
Oh yeah, and I wonder what's more important, keeping within the time limit and doing it in the time, or giving a great answer? Because I'm just thinking, what if you gave an amazing answer and then you just quickly got cut off at the end, you didn't quite finish it? Should I repeat and you would hate that answer, or do I leave it and be authentic?
My preference would be I would rather you get cut off, but actually, get through 70% of a really great answer than you cut really early and I get a one-word response, or I get something that's 2 or 3 sentences that doesn't really sell yourself in the best light.
And I just wonder, do most people stand up or sit down, wear shirts, t-shirts? What's common?
It completely varies. And as I say, I don't look at what the person's wearing. I'm not bothered if they're in a t-shirt or if they're in a suit. We're in a day and age where actually dress code is less of a barrier, and that shouldn't be a deciding factor. That goes down to, judging and conscious bias and thinking about the way people look and act. That's not right, in my opinion. I focus more on what is it they're saying? Am I able to connect with this person? Are they engaging and showing that enthusiasm, that passion? And are they making the most of the opportunity? So as we say, making sure they use that time to their advantage. And the last point, as we say, just being themselves, just being their natural selves.
Okay, so Oriane, one question for you. What would you rather do? So let's say you were coming through the ranks again, and I think you came through the graduate route. Would you rather do a pre-recorded or a live video?
Oh God, it's a hard question, because I've done both, and I can see advantages to both of them. I think I'm more comfortable with live because most of us are. We like human interaction, but pre-recorded video interviews are here to stay and we cannot avoid them. I remember doing one when I was in, second year of university now. I applied for a huge fashion retailer. I had a pre-recorded video interview and I absolutely bombed it. I will never forget how terrible it was. And that's exactly why I know how much preparation you need to put into this to get the best from the experience. So there are some more tips we will cover in just a moment. But in terms of how you can feel confident ahead of that interview, confidence is a really challenging point. So if I ask the question to you as students, how many of you have felt nervous before an interview? And what do you do when you feel nervous? So this could be live, it could be pre-recorded, it could be anything, but how many of you feel nervous? And if you've not had an interview, do you feel nervous about having an interview?
Yeah, definitely. Do answer that there, guys. It's interesting. Just before then, Hannah was saying she'd rather do a live interview, but Charlie was saying probably rather do a pre-recorded interview because it seems less stressful as you have more chances to practice what to say. So it's interesting, bit of a split panel. Ryan here said that uses up pent up energy in the interview. That's a good idea. Use up that adrenaline.
Yeah. Hannah, terrified. I love that. I love the honesty and I prefer that so much. What about for anyone else? Karishma, I'd call a friend. That's lovely. And that's a really great idea as well. Charlie, I've got one next week and I'm nervous.
Charlie, who have you got it with? Do let us know. And Oriane, for me, I just remember I used to, when I did a face-to-face, I used to go into the toilet beforehand and just mentally prepare a little bit and just sort of look at myself in the mirror and just be like, you've got this, make sure my ties, obviously people maybe wear ties less now, but just make sure I look the part as well,
Yeah, it's completely normal. I mean, Rowan, I'd rather do pre-recorded. I think seeing the interviewer's face would scare me. Oh, well, hopefully if you were interviewed by me, that wouldn't be the case. But hopefully I'm a friendly face.
And guys, and that's important because Oriane is technically she gives people opportunities and cuts, she's in a bit of a ruthless, powerful position. But look at, she's a nice, normal person. This is what you've got to remember. I think they're just human beings and they leave work at 5:30, 6 o'clock like everybody else. That's important to think that, isn't it? I think, Oriane.
Yeah, definitely. And what we'll come on to now, if we go to the next slide, is a couple more tips on how you can feel confident ahead of an interview.
Cool.
So the first point I make is definitely do your research. Make sure you know the company. You may get asked why that company. What do you know about them? So you can always prepare for that. There's also common interview questions that you can Google, and there's nothing stopping you from preparing for those common questions. You can easily do that in your own time and Google common interview questions and prepare for them. We spoke about obviously practicing, filming yourself, answering those questions in a pre-recorded format. That will make you feel comfortable. but equally it will tell if you're being robotic, because you'll watch that video back and go, gosh, why was I touching my face over and over and over again? Or why did I start talking about my neighbour's dog's cat's son and, going off on a tangent? So that is my top advice. Practice. It is horrible to admit, but just do it. It will pay off, I promise you.
And Oriane, you must have been nervous, right? Look at you now, confident, obviously, in a good position in your job, but surely everyone starts at the bottom and everyone's nervous and everyone doubts themselves, right?
Oh God, the first conference kind of video call like this that I was doing, I did the exact same thing that I'm preaching to you now. I recorded myself speaking, and I learned from those patterns and those habits to be able to shape my language so I'm more clear. It just comes with practice and time, and it's something you can learn. You may be sat there thinking, I'm terrible, I can't speak, this is no use. You can do it. I was not a confident speaker, and yet look at me now. I'd say it's a breeze. It can happen.
Yeah, and do you know what I think actually, Anne? I was the same. I had to take a gap year to go and get any sort of confidence, really. Like I wasn't even ready to, speak to anyone, to be fair. And I just think it's getting these mental blockers out your head, and you do that through with experience. And you see it in the workplace sometimes, even colleagues or people that I work with, and they might go into a meeting and maybe because they're not technically the highest person ranked there, they might like not speak up as much, because they're junior. But actually you realize as you get older, everyone wants you to contribute and just be yourself. That's all it is. It's pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to your earlier point that we're not here to trip you up. I'm not here to laugh at people or get the worst out of them or make them feel horrendous. It's about giving everyone an opportunity to showcase the best of themselves. So definitely do your research. Oh, we need to go back one.
Sorry. Getting a bit excited.
Do your research, practice. But the third point that another student mentioned earlier when she said she would ask a friend, get your friends or family to throw curveball questions. Now, with a pre-recorded video interview, you have no idea what they're going to ask you. And when it's pre-recorded and that countdown timer starts ticking, you can panic, and it's normal to. If you're not allowed to re-record your answer, there's then that added pressure. So if you get friends or family to throw curveball questions and to film you responding to those, you'll get more comfortable so that when when a question, comes up, you feel more comfortable to answer that. And the fourth point that we've just said, if you can think the worst and you can think it's going to go absolutely terrible and you're going to bomb it and it's going to be horrendous, you can also think the best. You could think that you smash it, that you absolutely nail it and you get the job and they love you and you're brilliant. So don't let your brain trick you into thinking it's not going to be good. If you can think the worst, you can absolutely think the best.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, guys.
So just to recap on some of the key points that we've covered. So prepare. Go in as confident as you can. Be your natural self, but also practice. If you practice and you prepare and you film yourself ahead and give it a go, you will be more confident going into that video interview because you know what's coming and you've tried it. The second point, read your instructions. Make sure you know what the deadline is, what you need to click on, and as we've covered before, if there is a re-record option. The final point for number 2 is stick to the time limit. Don't give a 10-second answer. I can guarantee you'll be missing some really valuable information. So try to stick to the time limit, and if anything, overrun rather than underrun.
Fantastic.
The final point, it's okay to fluff it up. I fluffed up my placement year pre-recorded video interview for, as I say, a very well-known high street retailer, and I do not regret it one bit, because had I not ruined that video interview and got it horribly wrong, I wouldn't now know how to act in that scenario. And I wouldn't be in this position and in this job that I'm in now to be able to give you that advice. I've landed on my feet. I've still got a brilliant career. So even if something doesn't go the way you think, it's not the end of the world. The only thing you can do is learn from it, keep practicing, and just try again. You've got nothing to lose by giving it a go.
And yeah, and I quite like how you've explained why companies like Experian do this. Like it ultimately saves money, resource, and it's a better way of doing your recruitment, because I bet you get hundreds or thousands applying for your jobs, right? So it's how you funnel down. Like it's not like you're just there to try and find out people messing up on a video interview. That's not the case, is it?
Absolutely, but it also shows who's committed, because the people that actually want the job will go through this effort to prepare and to actually film their video interview. If they don't, well, clearly they don't want it that much. So it is a shortlisting process, and it's there to make sure we're looking at the people that really want the opportunity, that have a lot of potential to bring, and that are willing to put that effort and commitment in.
Great, thanks, Oriane. That's so helpful. And guys, by the way, we have got a little bit of time for questions now. And also I've got a little bit of information to tell you about events that we've got coming up as well. But here, we've got one more question, I think, here, Oriane, haven't we, in terms of what did you find most useful?
Yeah, I would love to know from all of you, I suppose if I was to put you on the spot, what's the one thing you're going to take away that you're going to remember from this session? Or what has maybe surprised you? What information is useful that you're going to take away and remember? Maybe you've learned something new, or maybe it's just giving you the confidence boost.
Hannah's on it, the preparation. For me, I think, Oriane, because I do loads of these, I just think you've given us really great insight into what companies do and how it looks. Because I just think, for me, I'm a visual learner. It's all about like how it's going to look and prepare for that. So I think that's been really, really good insight.
Some really great points. Video interviews aren't as terrifying as I thought. Yes, they're absolutely not. And that's the point of this session, to show you that reality. Charlie, Karishma, Ishan, some really great points there. What employers are looking for, practicing, don't rush your answers because of the timer. As you said, yeah, it's best to get cut off by a great answer.
That's great, guys. And I've got some questions coming in here. So Louise, why do I must be dyslexic. I was trying my best there. Sorry about that. So what would you say is the ideal structure of answers, e.g. explaining your qualifications and or experience, or being more immersive as in engaging with body language, etc.?
Really good question. And I suppose the challenging part is it depends on what you're being asked. So if I asked you, let's say, what's your favorite holiday that you've been on? And if you say Spain, okay, what more? Whereas if someone answers, oh, I went to Spain, and the reason I really loved it was I got to do some bachata dancing, and I got to try some new foods and new cultures, and I loved the experience. And actually, it made me realize I want to go back to Spain. So I'm now saving so that I can return. It's about elaborating your answers and delivering it in a way that we can learn more about you. So there's no perfect answer because it depends on the question. But that's a great example of, if I was to ask you, what was your favorite holiday and why? Don't just answer Spain. Don't just cut it off. Give us more. Tell us all of that really good information.
So yeah, you have opportunities and windows in life, don't you? And someone asking you a question and you giving a one-word answer is an opportunity. I think you've got to look at every engagement, haven't you, as an opportunity, even if you don't want to be there that day. You've got to see the positives out of it. Oriane, what about body language? Because you said you don't mind if they're wearing a Ralph Lauren shirt or whatever it might be. But what about your body language and gesturing? Because I've always thought, like, getting excited, showing that you're keen is important, isn't it?
Yeah, gesturing is fine, and it depends on the person. So you can't see it because my hands are on my desk, but I'm similar, that I naturally use my hands when I'm speaking without meaning to. And there's no right or wrong with that. Body language is important from a context of eye contact, engaging with the person that you are hopefully going to be speaking to and interviewing with and getting to meet. But that doesn't mean that you need to be all arms are waving and dancing. It's just more about showing that enthusiasm in a way that works for you. And if that's just being smiley and friendly and, you know, looking into the camera and engaging, that's fine. If it's moving your arms quite a bit, or, you know, maybe you need to fidget a little bit, that's also fine. It's about what works for you and gets the best from the experience.
What about if you're not natural at this whatsoever, and you've got quite a monotone voice, and you find it harder to maybe do the stuff that you and I have been doing today? Like, does that count against you if you're just not that type of person who's naturally going to be enjoying this?
The best question I think you've asked all day, Chris, because the reality for Experian is we recruit a lot of kind of data, technology, kind of analytical individuals where they potentially are a little bit more monotone because that's not their natural style. They're not the huge kind of social character. And that comes back to the quality of what you're saying. If the quality of what you're saying is much better than someone that's all singing and dancing, we don't care about that distraction. It's about what you're saying, but it also comes back to the practice. If you know that you sound a little bit robotic, keep practicing, do it with your friends and family, and try to elevate your tone and just show some positive enthusiasm as best as you can.
Fine, okay, so just slightly elevate that tone, because you're right, even if you're naturally monotone, like if you were just to get, I don't know, awarded £1 million, you wouldn't stay really monotone and, you know, like, and trying to act a bit more excited. I see what you mean. Test yourself a bit more on that. Amelia's got a good question. And what's the number one skill you look for when recruiting someone? Put you on the spot.
Oh gosh. I would say for me, it's the willingness to learn. I don't care what background someone's from. And if we're hiring you into an early careers position, I'm not expecting you to come with bags of experience or, you know, that placement, that part-time role, that direct qualification. What matters more to me is that the person is willing to learn, they're willing to commit to something and put in that energy and effort to grow and develop and take on board feedback. That's critical to me. Everything else you can learn on the job.
Like it, Oriane, thank you. And Hannah's asked, do universities use a similar process too in terms of this online assessment?
Good question. So universities don't at the moment. If you are, let's say you're on the waiting list and you get invited to an interview, it may be a telephone interview, it may be a video interview, but it is very, very unlikely that they would ever use a pre-recorded interview. It's not the right format. You'll tend to find it with employers in recruitment processes for apprenticeships, placements, or graduate roles.
Fantastic. Thank you, Oriane. We've only got a few minutes left, guys. Oriane, I'm just going to put you on the spot here, if you don't mind, because it's great that we get to speak to you and you've got lots of experience. I just want you to answer, if you were in each year group and having left school, like what your advice to yourself would be, like what you could try and think about as maybe, I'll try and achieve this in terms of getting, I don't care about grades, that school and college look after that, but about the employability side. So if you're in year 11, what advice would you have for year 11s potentially?
If you're year 11 and you're still at school or college, it would be get involved with anything they offer. If there's clubs, societies, if there's any improvements you can suggest to the school, get involved in any way you can that can evidence you working as a team, you producing ideas to solutions. Just generally get involved with what they offer. Equally, don't worry too much about fitting in. I remember at year 11, I was panicking on, am I popular? Am I not popular? It doesn't matter. And in 10 years' time, you honestly will not give two hoo-haws, to say the least. So don't worry about that.
And now I'm going to ask about year 12. So now we're stepping up, and there's 41% from year 12.
Year 12, it would be study what you enjoy and what you're passionate about. When you pick your A levels, make sure you study something that genuinely excites you. I know that you want to think about future employability, you want to pick subjects that will enhance your career, but if you hate the subject, you're going to hate those 2 years at college. So make sure you study something that you genuinely have an interest in, that you will put the time and effort and energy into. Don't feel that you're forced into studying something for the sake of it.
Yeah, guys, it's 70–80% of companies don't mind what you're studying. It's exactly like Oriane says, it's about your passion and doing well in what you are studying, you know, like trying to do well in something. That's really important, not about it has to be X, Y, Z. Okay, what about year 13s and if you've left school or college? Because year 13s aren't probably going back now. They don't have to do exams. And if you've left school or college, you're looking for a job, you know, and what would you say to young people about that mindset, I suppose?
I think for year 13, it's things like engaging with Pathway and making sure you sign up to these webinars, you get involved with employers and you network with them. Look at any free online courses. There are a ton with companies like FutureLearn, Udemy, the Open University. There's a ton of places that you can learn a subject for free in the career path that you want to go into. And then my last advice is network. Get to know as many employees as you can, and as many employers at these events. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Make an effort to expand your network. You never know who that person may be in 5 years' time or what they could help you with.
Love that, Oriane. Thank you very much. Oriane, would you mind popping those things into the chat box in terms of future learning, etc.? Because I think that's really great insight.
Absolutely.
And guys, I just want to say, I do know that I have got people in this session who you know are looking for jobs and aren't in school or college, but well done for sticking through this, because I think, you know, these skills are important for everybody, whether you're applying for, you know, a job like mine, which wouldn't have these systems in place. We're smaller. I would be doing a live video interview and maybe making it harder for you. Who knows? It depends on what side of the fence you are at there. But, you know, these bigger companies, I just think these skills are so important. But the key thing I want you to take away is that, you know, socially inclusive companies, yes, they are, and they do care about opportunities for all, and never believe that the door's shut for you. Like Oriane, she failed to get into her first job, you know, failed miserably by the sounds of it, but that's the beauty of trying to get to where you want to get to, because with every failure comes success, and success doesn't come without failure. So hopefully you're only at the beginning of your failures now, and you're going to keep failing for the rest of your life, because what it means is that you will be successful, because every successful person fails. I think that's how we've got to look at it and embrace it. But well done for turning up. And the reason we do these in your own time is because we want people with good attitude. And that's why I started Pathway CTM. It's all about attitude. If you can turn up to stuff like this, put it on your CV, and turn up to interviews and turn up to a pre-recorded video scenario, it says a lot about you. And people like Oriane and Experian, they always look for people with amazing attitudes, like they said there, with those communication skills at the top of what companies are looking for. Next week, guys, we've got a session with Jaguar Land Rover looking at the online assessment center. So that'll be really interesting, looking at, you know, maybe speaking online with different groups of people, which you could argue is even more complex and challenging. But that's what's happening now across the world, across the UK, certainly is what I know about anyway. So get involved in that. But also, look, here are some of the events coming up. So look, guys, if you're keen, 6 o'clock, we've got a skills session with our Arcaders. They do engineering and engineering and construction, and they're going to be doing some skills sessions at 6 o'clock. So get onto that if you want. NHS tomorrow, we've got a teacher event Thursday evening, tomorrow evening that is. And Sony Music next week, guys, you know, more of a creative look on things. They're going to be teaching some media skills. And then in a couple of weeks' time, guys, if you are looking for employment as well, the Army are recruiting across loads of different roles. Come and find out about what's going on with all of those, and get onto our website to sign up for those. But well done for turning up today. Oriane's put her LinkedIn profile there. I'm going to give the last word to Oriane, because I just think, you know, it's great that you've given up your time, Oriane, to spend with us. And what would you say, I suppose, to students who have stuck on right till the end?
Just a massive thank you, and definitely get this on your CV. Put this down as extracurriculum activity that you've engaged with an employer, that you've showed that interest and enthusiasm, that you've learned from the experience. So I hope you have gained a lot of really valuable tips. And as I say, there is another recording with Pathway that you'll be able to access on more video interview tips. So best of luck. And my final closing piece, again, if you can think the worst, you can also think the best. So hope you enjoy the rest of your week and weekends.
Love it. Thanks so much, Oriane, and see you guys next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.